Hello everyone and welcome back to the Galactic Armory. It feels like it's been a while since I've done one of these full-length tutorials, but I'm very excited to get back to it today. A lot of you guys requested this, so I'm very happy to make it. We're going to be making the full Boba Fett fresh armor set as seen in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, and hopefully the Book of Boba. Hopefully they don't change it on us right after we finish all this hard work. But I'm going to show you guys how to go from a raw 3D printed kit to a finished product that just looks amazing. I'm going to be 3D printing this from my own files. You can find links to them in the description. I'm also going to start selling DIY kits for this armor, so if you want to follow along with the tutorial but don't have your own 3D printer, you can check that out in the description as well. Now this is going to be a long process, so I'm not going to be able to cover everything in today's video. I figured that we'd cover how to get the armor to stick to your person, as well as lightly touch on some of the clothing choices that I went with. We're also going to need to assemble some of the larger pieces, the jetpack mostly. That thing is just huge. And so I'm going to show you guys how I assemble it, how I get it to fit onto the back plate, and we're going to have a real good time. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now the first thing I want to cover is how to assemble the jetpack. This thing is an absolute beast and it comes in 4 main parts. I had to split it up a bit in order to get it to fit on my printer, but it shouldn't be an issue for us. The first thing we need to do is sand down the edges so that they all fit together as close together as they can. So I've got a flat surface with some sandpaper on it, and we're just going to sand down all the edges that need to interlock. This is going to help the glue set faster, as well as make the pieces fit together closer. Now once the parts are sanded, I'm going to use some cyano acrylic super glue to hold the pieces in place. Just a few drops along the inside and the edges should be enough. All that dust we created from sanding the edges should help it bond faster. So let's put the pieces together and hold them in place as best we can until the glue sets, which should be about 30 seconds. Now this part is crucial to make sure that the pieces are aligned. Otherwise, if they're not aligned and the glue cures, it's going to be a lot harder to hide those seams between the parts, and people might be able to see that it's printed in 4 pieces. If we do it really well, people will have no idea. So make sure those pieces are as perfectly aligned as possible. You can kind of see me rubbing my finger over the edge to make sure that they're as smooth as they can be. So once that glue cures, we're going to add the top 2 pieces. Same thing, sand the edges, add some glue, hold it in place. You can see I added a wooden dowel to the top. This is actually something I added to make sure that my prints are extra strong. This wooden rod is going to go through the rocket that fits into this jetpack, and it's going to provide a nice support rod through the middle to make sure that the print doesn't snap. But you see me fit that in here to make sure that the pieces are aligned in a way that actually allows that wooden dowel to fit. So I'm just going to rest this 1/2 inch wooden dowel in the hole just to make sure that down the road we can add that later. So with the jetpack finished, we're going to need to start assembling the back plate that the jetpack hangs on as well. This is kind of a similar process. It's going to take some extra steps because the back is a little bit weird, but the beginning is the same. We need to sand down all the edges, use our cyano acrylic super glue to hold them together, make sure that they're as seamless as possible, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step when you have all the pieces attached to it. Here's a closer look at that wooden support rod that I mentioned earlier. Like I said, it is a 1/2 inch diameter wooden rod. You can find them in most craft stores. I just got this from Walmart. I cut it to around 20 inches long. That should be enough to fill in the rocket as well as connect to the jetpack. So I'm going to use this wooden rod to help align the parts of the rocket as well. Since the rocket is going to be connected to this wooden rod, I don't mind gluing it in place. But you can see how it fits right into the jetpack. This is going to make sure that our rocket doesn't snap if it bumps up against something rough, because trust me, accidents do happen and parts do break on occasion if you're a little rough with them. This is going to help alleviate and protect against that. Okay, so here's our back plate, and I'm going to cover those extra steps that we talked about earlier. As you can kind of see here, there are 2 parts of the back plate that rest on top of the shoulders, and we're going to need to reinforce that because it's got to hold a lot of weight. It's got to hold that entire weight of the jetpack, so we want those shoulder straps to be extra strong. Otherwise, they'll snap off the moment you try and put it on. So what I'm going to be doing is reinforcing those shoulder straps with some fiberglass resin and some fiberglass cloth. Now for this, you absolutely need to wear a respirator and do this in a well-ventilated room, because this fiberglass resin is absolutely nasty, nasty stuff. It's going to smell terrible even hours after you're finished with it. So don't leave this in the living room, or I even hesitate to say leave it in the garage because it's going to make your garage smell awful. But once we're finished, it is going to be so much stronger than it originally was. And we're even going to do this in a few other places of the armor just to help reinforce it. This stuff is a great reinforcer of 3D printed parts. It's gonna make them so much stronger. But what we need to do is cut out strips of that fiberglass cloth. I generally like to cut like rectangles that are at maximum about 4 inches long. This cloth kind of falls apart easily, so you don't want to cut them too small, but you also want to cut them short enough so that you can work them around the curves and the corners of the armor. Now here I've put some aluminum foil in the lid of this fiberglass resin. That's where I'm going to pour the resin, and the aluminum foil is going to make sure that once we're done, the cleanup is already taken care of. Once you've poured the resin into a container, you need to mix in this hardening agent. I added about 18 to 20 drops of this stuff, and then you want to stir it in really well. So once you've mixed in that hardening agent, the clock starts ticking until this stuff just becomes totally solid. So you need to work kind of quick to get all this done. You can see I've already laid out some cloth on the shoulders. I find it's generally easiest to lay the cloth and then lightly dab the resin on top of it. You don't want to press too hard or that cloth will just get everywhere. And the thing about this cloth is that once the resin hardens in it, if the cloth is all frayed, it's going to be like so prickly and rough, it's going to stab you 1,000 different ways. So being very gentle at this step can help prevent that. You can also see I've laid some tape around the edges of the back plate. That's because this resin tends to seep and move a little bit after you've laid it. So that tape is just there to help prevent it from like seeping over to the top side and making more work for us. So you want to be really generous with the amount of cloth that you're using. In theory, you want to use the same amount or the same weight of cloth to resin. I generally just try and eyeball it. You want the cloth to be fully soaked with resin, and you don't want resin just running off. You want it to be soaked into the cloth as well. Now I'm going to add about 3 to 4 layers of cloth along the shoulders, around the top of the back. I'm also going to do it to some of the chest pieces just to help reinforce them. I'm not too worried about them breaking, but as a precaution, sorry guys, that's my cat in the background. As a precaution, just in case I drop them or something. So once I've added about 3 or 4 layers of cloth, I'm gonna let this cure. It takes about an hour to fully harden, but leave it alone for like a day. Leave it outside if you can. Otherwise, just let it finish curing somewhere that you don't care about where it smells. So here's how the pieces look after it's cured. They're definitely a lot stronger, but this resin is still kind of rough. Even though we were gentle with the cloth, the edges of the cloth are still a little bit prickly, so we're gonna go ahead and sand those down. I'm just gonna run a mouse sander with a 120 grit pad, something pretty tough that can sand down this fiberglass. I'm just gonna run it over the back plate and around the chest pieces where I put all this resin. This is gonna help smooth it out and make sure it doesn't stab us a lot. This step is pretty optional, but I had some spare like faux leather laying around, so I thought it might as well. But what we're gonna do is cut out some sections that match the back plate, the chest plates of this faux leather, and we're just gonna use it to cover up all of the resin just so any remaining pricklies don't really bother us and that this thing is comfortable to wear. So I just trace out the pattern that matches the piece I'm going to put the leather on, cut it out, and then just glue it on with some E6000. Now that the chest and back are ready, let's take a look at the knees. The knees are pretty simple. I'm just going to use an elastic band and use some E6000 around both sides. This elastic band means it's going to be able to flex around my leg, but it's also going to be held in place pretty well. You want it to be pretty tight, but not too tight to where it's like cutting off circulation, but that E6000 should be strong enough to hold it in place while you're wearing it. Just going to use some clamps to hold it in place, let it sit overnight for about 24 hours for the glue to fully cure. Okay, now we can start putting everything together. First, what we're going to need to do is figure out a way to attach the little front collar to the back plate. Now there's not enough room when they're connected for your head to fit through, so what we're going to need to do is figure out a solution to where we can remove the collar and put it around our neck when we have the back plate on. So for that, I've got some Velcro. I just got this stuff off of Amazon. It's amazing. It's got a really sticky backside, and it comes with both the fuzzy and the prickly side of Velcro. So I'm going to apply some E6000 underneath the sticky side just to give it some extra hold, and we're going to extend the Velcro past so that the Velcro on the collar can reach underneath and attach to the back plate. Again, I'm going to use some clamps to hold the pieces in place, because this glue does take around 24 hours to fully cure, so if you don't hold it in place, it's going to move. And then I'm just going to apply some extra E6000 around the edges, just to make sure that this thing isn't going anywhere. Okay, now we're going to use a similar technique to attach the chest armor to this undershirt. Now I'll go ahead and link this undershirt that I used in the description. It's got like a giant turtleneck. I didn't pick the fashion choices in the show, but this is pretty accurate to what I've seen. Now what I'm going to do is attach some Velcro to the back sides of the armor plates and kind of see how they fit on my chest, and then we're going to do the other side of the Velcro onto the shirt itself. You can kind of see me just getting a rough idea of where to put the Velcro or where to put the armor pieces, and we want to try and get it as accurate as possible the first time around. So after I've attached the Velcro to the chest pieces, I'm going to cut out some similarly sized Velcro for the shirt, and we're going to glue that down with some E6000. I fit the back plate on the inside of this cloth just to prevent the glue from seeping through the first layer and connecting the backside through the second layer, so that way we don't accidentally glue our shirt together. We're getting close to be able to put everything on, but first we need to connect the jetpack to the back plate. Now it's got 3 hooks that interlock with each other and make sure that the jetpack is well supported. It takes a little bit to push the jetpack through the holes, but once they're connected, it should be held in place pretty well. We're also able to separate them again for when we need to start painting and smoothing. Now that we've got that connected, let's go ahead and put everything on. So first I'm going to start with the undershirt, obviously, since that's what everything else connects to. Once that's put on, I'm going to align the chest pieces along with their Velcro. Try and space them out as well you can without showing a lot of the Velcro underneath. I didn't do a great job of it here, but that's an easy fix. After that, I like to put on the jetpack and partially attach the neck collar. That way we only have to connect one piece once it's over our head, but just connect the Velcro to the other side and then pull that big neck collar out through. So now I put the jetpack rocket in, and ideally I should have put this in the jetpack before I put the jetpack on, but I get there eventually. Now I didn't show anything about the forearms because there's not really much to show. They just slide onto your forearms for now, but here they are. Nor did I show much about the shoulders because they're pretty straightforward. I just used the same Velcro technique that we did for the chest parts for the shoulders. So I just throw those in place. They're out of frame right now, but I put the knees on. They just slid up through my leg and are resting just below my kneecap. Lastly, we're gonna put the helmet on just for show. And there you go, guys. We've got a good place to start for our full costume. We've got all the major armor pieces on and fitted to our body. That's all I'm gonna cover in this episode. There's still a lot more work to be done on this armor set. Lots of smoothing, lots of sanding, lots of painting, but I want to cover all those in future videos. But make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to check out those links in the descriptions for either the files, the DIY kits, the shirts, some of the other materials that I use for this. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that you're feeling confident enough to take on a project like this yourself, because it is just immensely fun and rewarding, and I hope that everyone gets to experience that. That's all for now, but I hope to see you guys again in the next video.